Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you design. And that design always begins with the end in mind. Most people start at the wrong place. They start with what they have, or what's missing, or what somebody else decided for them. So they end up living by reaction, not intention. They go where the wind blows. They spend years climbing ladders, only to find the ladder leaned against the wrong wall. But there's another way, a better way. You can begin at the end. You can start by defining what the finish line looks like, because the finish line shapes the race. If you want to reverse engineer your future, you must first see it in detail. Who do you want to become? Not just what you want to have. That comes later. The first question is about becoming, because when you become more, you can have more and you can do more. So picture it. Who is that person 10 years from now? What kind of character do they have? How do they speak? How do they think? What kind of people do they attract? What kind of peace do they live with? What kind of contribution do they make? Now, once that's clear, add the material picture too. What do you want to own? The home, the business, the investments, the freedom. Be honest with yourself. Clarity isn't arrogance, it's accuracy. You can't hit a target you haven't defined. Then ask how you want to live. Not just the external details, the travel, the income, the calendar, but the internal ones. What do your mornings feel like? What kind of energy do you bring to the day? What's the atmosphere of your home? This is where design begins. Most people never stop long enough to create that picture. They're too busy surviving today to imagine tomorrow. But imagination is the architect of reality. Once you have that clear image of the end, your ideal self, your ideal lifestyle, your ideal contribution, you now have something powerful: direction. Direction creates purpose, and purpose gives meaning to every single action. When you know the finish line, decisions become easier. You start filtering everything. Does this move me closer to the picture, or does it move me away? That's how you gain focus. See, clarity eliminates confusion. When you begin with the end in mind, every day becomes a step in a design journey instead of a random walk. You stop being a reactor and start being a creator. The reason most people drift isn't because they lack ability. It's because they lack vision. They wake up every morning and respond to the world instead of shaping it. But you can decide to do it differently. You can decide to draw your life like an architect draws a building, on paper first, then in brick and steel. So don't just ask what you're going to do tomorrow. Ask who you're going to be in 10 years. The clearer that picture, the stronger your reason, and the steadier your walk. That's the starting point for reverse engineering your future. You define the end so sharply that it begins to pull you forward like gravity. Every choice begins to find its place in that larger design. That's how it starts. The power to design your life begins the moment you choose to see the end before you start the journey. Once the picture of the end is clear, the next step is to identify its components. Success isn't magic, and it isn't luck. It's the result of assembling specific pieces in the right order. Think of your vision like a house. You've drawn the blueprint. Now you must list the materials. No builder begins without knowing what the structure requires. You don't guess the size of the beams or the number of bricks. You calculate them. The same rule applies to building your life. Every dream is made up of elements: skills, habits, relationships, and resources. Each one is a building block that supports the design. If one is missing, the structure weakens. Start with skills. Every future requires its own skill set. A successful career, a thriving business, a rich family life. Each demands competence. You can't wish competence into existence. You must build it through study, practice, and repetition. The better you get, the more predictable your results become. Then look at habits. Skills are what you can do. Habits are what you consistently do. 1 hour of discipline can change a day. One daily habit can change a year. A handful of good habits can change a life. But they must be chosen intentionally. You can't afford to let random habits shape a designed future. Now think about relationships. No one builds alone. The people around you will either accelerate your growth or drain your energy. Choose carefully. Spend time with those who challenge you to grow, who believe in principles, who remind you of the standard you've set. Because if you spend your time with those who don't share your design, they'll pull you into theirs. Then there are resources: time, money, energy, attention. These are your tools. Use them wisely. You don't need unlimited resources. You need focused ones. The power of resourcefulness always outweighs the size of resources. A well-managed hour can outperform a wasted day. Once you see the pieces, you can measure them. You can track progress. You can adjust what's missing. That's when success becomes predictable. Chaos ends when structure begins. Most people never get this far. They admire the finished product in others, but never study the ingredients. They see the fruit, but ignore the roots. But those who reverse engineer success know that if you can name the parts, you can build the whole. If you want health, identify the components: nutrition, exercise, rest, mindset. If you want wealth, identify them: value creation, saving, investing, stewardship. If you want influence, identify them: communication, consistency, credibility. Every result is built from a combination of causes. When you understand that, you stop calling success a mystery and start treating it like a formula. And formulas can be learned, duplicated, refined. The key is precision. Don't just say, "I want to be successful." Define what kind of success and what it's made of. Vague plans produce vague results. But when you isolate the components, you gain control. You can improve what you can see and measure. So, write it down. List the elements that make up your future. What must you master? What must you practice? Who must you learn from? What resources must you guard? These are not just questions. They are the architecture of achievement. Once you identify the components, the next step is to trace the sequence. You know what you need. Now you must know the order. Because in life, the right steps in the wrong sequence still fail. Now that you've identified the pieces, the next step is to trace the sequence backward. This is where the phrase reverse engineer truly comes alive. It means you take the finished picture, the life, the business, the health, the freedom, and you ask one simple question: what must happen right before that result appears? This process turns dreams into plans. It moves you from imagination to strategy. Most people plan forward. They start from today and guess their way toward the future. But when you work backward, you eliminate guesswork. You see the chain of causes that lead to results. Start with the final scene. Suppose your goal is financial independence. What must exist right before that? Consistent income from investments, perhaps. What must exist before that? Disciplined saving, wise allocation, understanding of markets. And before that, education, effort, patience, and the habit of managing a budget. Step by step, you trace it back until you land at today. That's reverse engineering. You take a complex outcome and deconstruct it until you can see the first move. When you do this, something powerful happens. You realize that the future isn't mysterious. It's a sequence. It's a chain of connected events, each dependent on the previous one. And if you control the early steps, you can predict the later ones. Imagine you want to be a person of influence. What must happen before that? People must trust you. What must happen before that? You must demonstrate integrity, keep promises, show consistency. What must happen before that? You must choose honesty when it costs you something. The chain goes back to a single daily decision: to tell the truth, to do what you said, to lead yourself before leading others. That's how great results are born. From tracing the sequence backward until the next step is small enough to take. It's the same in business, in relationships, in health. You start with the picture of what you want. Then you walk backward through time, linking each necessary step. Eventually, you arrive at the present moment with a clear roadmap. Now, today's actions make sense because they're connected to tomorrow's outcomes. Without this process, effort feels scattered. You work hard, but not necessarily in the right direction. You invest energy, but lack alignment. That's why so many people feel busy, but not effective. They're moving, but not necessarily moving toward their desired end. Reverse engineering removes that confusion. It reveals which actions have leverage and which are noise. It shows where the dominoes start, because once the first one tips, the rest follow naturally. This is what separates the reactive from the strategic. The reactive asks, what should I do today? The strategic asks, what must happen today to make tomorrow inevitable? One question focuses on motion. The other focuses on momentum. So trace it back. If your goal is 10 years away, outline the 5-year condition that must exist, then the 3-year milestone, then the 1-year marker, then the next 90 days. Keep zooming in until the step in front of you is so clear it requires no debate. When you live this way, the distance between dream and reality shrinks. You stop hoping and start engineering. And that's when you gain control, not over the future itself, but over the process that creates it. That's the discipline of tracing the sequence backward. It's not magic, it's method. And once you understand the method, you can build almost anything you can imagine. Once the sequence is mapped, the next challenge is alignment. Making sure what you do today serves who you want to be tomorrow. That's the bridge between vision and behavior. See, most people disconnect the two. They dream big on Sunday night and drift small by Monday morning. Their goals live on paper, but their habits live on autopilot. And that's why progress feels slow, because their daily life isn't aligned with their designed future. The truth is simple. Every choice either builds or breaks the bridge between now and your vision. Each decision either confirms the design or contradicts it. You don't drift into the life you want. You drive there, one consistent day at a time. So ask yourself, what does my future self expect of me today? If the person you want to become 10 years from now could look at your calendar, your diet, your language, your spending, would they nod in approval or shake their head in disappointment? Alignment is about integrity between identity and activity. If you want to be a leader, you practice discipline now. If you want financial freedom, you practice stewardship now. If you want peace, you practice patience now. You don't wait to become the person. You practice being them in advance. When you align your present habits with your future identity, you create momentum, because the future rewards the person you are becoming, not the one you used to be. Think of alignment like calibration. You can have a powerful engine, but if the wheels aren't aligned, you won't travel far. The car will pull to one side, waste energy, wear out early. Life works the same way. When your values, goals, and routines are aligned, progress feels smoother. When they're not, you burn energy correcting drift instead of creating movement. That's why every day matters. A small misalignment repeated daily becomes a major detour. But a small correction repeated daily becomes transformation. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just keep adjusting toward your ideal self. Look at your habits honestly. Do they serve your design or sabotage it? The answer will tell you how close you are to alignment. If your dream is health, but your routine is exhaustion, you're out of alignment. If your goal is wealth, but your spending ignores discipline, you're out of alignment. If your desire is harmony, but your words create tension, you're out of alignment. So align them. Bring your actions back into agreement with your vision. Every time you do, you strengthen the bridge between today and tomorrow. The good news is that alignment compounds. The more consistent your actions become, the easier the next decision is to make. Discipline stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like purpose. You start to see how small things add up. Reading a few pages, making that extra call, saying no to distractions. Each is a vote for the person you're becoming. And over time, those votes define the outcome. That's how alignment works. You bring your behavior under the authority of your vision. You stop asking what's easy and start asking what's necessary. When today reflects tomorrow, you gain momentum that can't be faked because the present is finally serving the future. And that's when the design starts to materialize. Not someday, but day by day. Once your actions are aligned, the final step is to adjust, refine, and execute. Because no plan, no matter how brilliant, survives unchanged. Life shifts, markets move, people evolve. The question is not whether circumstances will change, but whether you will remain adaptable while keeping your vision fixed. The vision must stay steady. The methods can move. Think of a pilot flying through a storm. The destination doesn't change, but the flight path might. The pilot adjusts altitude, direction, and speed. The goal is to stay on course, not to stick stubbornly to the original line. That's how life works. The blueprint is alive. It's a working document, not a relic. You review it often. You measure results. You check what's working, what's not, and you refine. The weak habits get replaced. The strong ones get reinforced. The process matures as you do. Too many people quit because the plan needed an update. They mistake flexibility for failure. But flexibility is the secret to longevity. You adjust the tactics so you can preserve the dream. Every builder revises the design as new realities appear. Every entrepreneur refines strategy when the numbers speak. Every learner revisits methods as understanding deepens. Adjustment isn't retreat, it's precision. And then comes execution. All the vision, structure, and planning in the world mean nothing without movement. Execution turns design into evidence. You can think, plan, visualize, and prepare. But only execution turns the invisible into the visible. This is where discipline meets momentum. The world doesn't respond to intention, it responds to action. So you do the work every day according to the design. You make decisions based on principles, not moods. You keep showing up. You keep adjusting. You keep refining. If you fall short, analyze. Don't agonize. The question isn't, why did I fail? It's, which variable needs attention? Success is built on course correction, not perfection. The disciplined few understand this. They don't tear up the blueprint when the first obstacle appears. They adapt the inputs until the outputs align again. They know progress is less about speed and more about consistency. Reverse engineering your future isn't about predicting every detail. It's about designing the framework, acting within it, and adjusting intelligently as new information arrives. That's the work of mastery, constant refinement toward a fixed vision. You don't build the perfect plan once. You build a living plan that improves as you grow. And when that happens, when vision, structure, and execution align, you begin to experience the quiet power of intention fulfilled. Your life becomes architecture, not accident. You stop reacting and start constructing. You stop waiting and start living. The future doesn't happen by chance. It happens by construction. You reverse engineer it, then you live it, one disciplined day at a time.